Without further comment, let me call on Paul.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, because the link with the previous presentation is obvious, with searching for G20 value-added growth is certainly key. Just a precision, I'm coming from the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, not the Agence Française, but that's... and also I have to convey the apologies from Cyril Pierre, who was supposed to step today and who helped me to prepare this short presentation. I know this audience is very well aware of the G20 development matters, and with last week's presentation, you had a very nice update and very thorough update on where we head for the Seoul summit. We are now in the final countdown to Seoul, and the French presidency of the G20 will be just the day after the Seoul summit on the 13th of November. And up to there, of course, the Korean presidency has preeminence to choose what information and what possible outcome will come from there, and will stay within these boundaries. This being said, there are very good reasons to be optimistic of this first exploration of the G20 in development matters. Now the development agenda is firmly mainstreamed in the G20 agenda, and this is good news, and we have to thank the Korean chairmanship for this vision and steermanship in this regard. And from Toronto to Seoul, we have now a consensus within G20 members of the importance of the agenda, because development matters per se, and also because development is key to the broader objectives of the G20. And we expect to find this balance in the Seoul communique between important development per se and DGs in particular, and the contribution of development to the broader objectives of the G20. And in a nutshell, that's the Toronto sentence. Narrowing the development gap and reducing poverty are integral to our broader objective of achieving strong, sustainable, and balanced growth, and ensuring a more robust and resilient global economy for all. As you know, the Seoul Summit will launch a G20 multi-year action plan, and France is willing to develop and deliver on this plan as part of its responsibility as the next G20 president. We now, when we come to the actual plan, this G20 action plan will not look like any plan or commitment as we know in the G8 era. It will be different from, I guess there are many G8 specialists in this room, so we know of G8 plans. There will be new areas of action for the international community regarding development. But there will be, some would say, some missing paragraphs. So what happened to classic topics of the G8, and where are we heading to? For example, ODA is not a strong point of what we will see. The Paris Declaration, the Accra Forum process, we won't find that much at this stage. So what happened? Did the, let's say, OECD members lost their analysis, vision, or did we lost somewhere the MDGs or climate change or even ODA on the way? Clearly, no. But what we see is the G20 is accelerating an ongoing evolution in the way the international community deal with development matters. That's very clear. So what we would like to stress here is that what you will find in Seoul regarding development is key to this new approach. But it can work only in a broader context, in conjunction with the entire global governance system working. And in this new division of labor, which is not like the G8 division of labor, the G20 does what it does best: leadership for economic cooperation, as they as the premier forum for economic cooperation. But other institutions, processes, and actors work on equally important challenges for development. That's very clear. A more concrete example of this view is how France is planning its G20 agenda for next year in conjunction with other non-G20 events that come along. So we are in the wake on the following of Toronto and for the GH Muskoka, and this is still the framework. But then we had in September the MDG Summit, and it's very important for the work of the G20 Development Working Group is very aware of the G20 Summit. And for France, of course, the G20 Summit is also a reference for many themes that are very important in the French development policy, like innovative financing. Other landmarks for next year are the climate agenda, starting at Cancun and continuing in South Africa. And we also consider the Istanbul Summit on least developed countries in May to be of a great importance, and as such calling for a clear connection with the G20 agenda. So we really see the G20 as part of a broader picture. This interconnectedness is a consequence of a development approach that has followed the path of globalization. This approach to development is certainly more complex. It comprises a wider range of goals, even if the fight against poverty stays a priority. But policy tools, actors, and areas of potential impact on development are broader than ever. So how can we put some order in that and have a kind of mapping of what we should do within the G20, or what should be done elsewhere, or what should be done with the leadership of the G20 and delivering somewhere else? We have a new French strategy being stamped this week as a governmental new policy development strategy for the next decade that identifies 4 main challenges for development policy. And these 4 challenges are growth, fight against poverty, global public goods, and security for development. So what is G20 and non-G20 in that list? Clearly growth is G20. Security for development may not be G20. And in between, fight against poverty and global public goods is, I would say, indirect G20. And if we shift from the challenges to the levels of, to the policy tools, we also identify 4 categories of policy tools. The first is a global approach to the financing of development. It's financing of development beyond ODA. And there we find domestic resource mobilization, clearly a G20 issue. Private investment, both domestic and international, clearly a G20 issue. Or innovative financing.
Just a vocabulary clarification. Beyond ODA means including ODA or apart from ODA?
Well, ODA certainly is reaffirmed, but it's beyond, it's non-ODA financing for development. Mm-hmm. I probably should go a little faster now. Then policy coherence for development is another very strong tool. And we see G20 copying on trade, on food security, and then governance, norms, rule of law, and with subjects like tax evasion or non-cooperative jurisdiction, G20 can have an action. And then knowledge exchange, where G20 can also have value added. I guess I should go a little faster.
We have another 5 minutes.
Another 5 minutes? Thank you. So for France, the G20 comparative advantage is measured against each and every of these goals, policy instruments, and partnerships. Sometimes the G20 is the right forum to address them, and sometimes it can provide additional dose of leadership, and sometimes it's not appropriate. So the necessity of a division of labor is very clear among G20 leaders, but the implementation of this division of labor, of course, reflects national preference. this comes to the last part where we define what are probably the strongest challenge for the next presidency after this very good start under Korean chairmanship. First challenge is the challenge of efficiency. From 8 to 20, it's not just a change of scale, it's a change of nature. So how do we make a functioning body of this G20? Second challenge is a challenge of credibility. Much has been said about this G20 summit being a little different. The first one, not the direct response to crisis. So there is an ambitious agenda that was defined for the global French presidency, stressing that we have to keep the momentum, that the structural causes of crisis are still there, and that we have to address them. Therefore, the three main points for the French presidency, development or not development included, which are the reform of the international monetary system, the reduction of price volatility, and the reform of global governance. And we see clearly that each of these three overall themes have an impact on development. The third challenge is the challenge, of course, of legitimacy. And there is an abundant literature on that, because the G20, with more than 80% of world GDP, has a strong leadership potential, but the legitimacy, and I expect much to be said on that, is another issue. And we, as France, the fundamental vision is that the legitimacy lies in bodies like the EU, in the UN, but there is a broader legitimacy issues with the reform of the international governance at stake. But we want to see the G20 legitimacy improved through this global governance. So the G20 must be part of the solution for a renewed multilateralism where the UN system plays its full role. Another issue of legitimacy is the capacity of the G20 in this transfer of the development agenda from the G8 to the G20 to keep focused on the least developed countries. That's another very strong issue for the legitimacy. And then there is a fourth challenge, which is accountability and transparency with outreach to civil society, with exchange of ideas, and with a transparent way to do business, we would say. Finally, to conclude, you've heard a lot about these pillars that were at the heart of the working group on development for the G20. We attach, of course, importance to each of these pillars, but maybe we can single out 4 of them to see maybe what we view as their potential to improve the development agenda. The one called growth with resilience, we've seen with Mr. Alan Witters that there was an acknowledgement that the external shock affect disproportionately poor countries. But we see also that the growth rate in itself may cover very different kind of growth. Some growth that are balanced between physical, human, and natural capital, and others that are not. And some kind of growth that bring jobs, and others that do not bring jobs. And that's a clear issue. And we want to link this pillar, growth with resilience, to interconnect with more comprehensive approach to growth and development. And I'm thinking about the social protection floor, for example. Another of this pillar is food security. And we see also a link with the general G20 agenda for France about price volatility. But there are also more specialized work for the G20, for example, on the subject of responsible investment in agriculture. Another pillar is well-known infrastructure. That's probably where there is a larger consensus within the G20. And there is a special view on the regional integration dimension of it. And another fourth pillar among we can single out is the domestic resource mobilization. because it means more ownership for governments, because it means less dependence on aid, because it's an answer to diminishing return on custom tax. That's where the G20 probably can do a lot of work. So these are some examples of priorities, approaches, or methods for the upcoming French presidency, building on this already good-looking prospective outcome of the Seoul summit. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much.